The metallic taste flooded my mouth as my sister's words hung in the air above the birthday cake. Maybe this will explain why you're another man's mistake. Every person at the table had gone statue still, forks suspended, conversations died mid-sentence. The DNA test kit sat between us like evidence at a trial, its cheerful packaging obscene against what it represented. My throat closed, not from shame, from recognition. Because my mother's face had already drained white before Naomi finished speaking. Because my sister's smile wasn't surprised or curious. It was satisfied. They knew. Both of them had always known. The chandelier above us suddenly felt too bright, the room too small, the air thick with 35 years of lies I'd been breathing without realizing they were poison. My name is Rebecca. I'm 35 and I'm a financial analyst. This is the story of how I stopped being invisible. Growing up as the Hartley family's afterthought taught me to move through rooms like a ghost. Our Denver house was all granite countertops and vaulted ceilings, the kind of place that photographed beautifully but echoed with cold silence. My sister Naomi commanded every space she entered. Loud, dramatic, magnetic in a way that made people forget I existed even when I stood right beside her. Mom's attention followed Naomi like a spotlight. When Naomi brought home a C, it was, "You tried your best, sweetie." When I brought home straight A's, Mom would glance up from her phone just long enough to say, "That's nice, Rebecca. Can you start dinner?" Dad was different. Quiet, steady, present in small ways that mattered. A hand on my shoulder during family arguments, showing up to my college graduation when Mom claimed she had a migraine. He never said much, but I felt seen by him in a way I never did by anyone else in that house. After he died 6 months ago, that feeling died with him. Or so I thought. When Mom insisted on hosting my birthday dinner at the family home, her voice over the phone had a rehearsed quality that made my skin prickle. "It'll just be the three of us. Something small. We need to talk about your father's estate anyway." The moment I walked through the front door that evening, I knew something was wrong. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and anxiety. Mom's wine glass was already half empty at 6 p.m. Naomi sat at the kitchen island scrolling through her phone, barely acknowledging my arrival with a flick of her eyes. "Finally," she said, not looking up. "Mom's been pacing for an hour." I tried asking about the will gently. Dad had been gone for months. "Have you heard anything from Mr. Chen about when We're handling it." Mom cut me off, her smile so brittle it could shatter. She refilled her wine glass with shaking hands. "These things take time." But Naomi's smirk told a different story. She knew something, and she was enjoying watching me not know it. Dinner was performance art. Naomi dominated the conversation, talking about her upcoming kitchen renovation, her husband's promotion, the trip to Napa they'd just returned from. Mom laughed at everything, even when nothing was funny. When I mentioned a project at work, Naomi talked right over me about countertop samples. I was furniture, decoration, background noise in my own birthday dinner. Then Naomi pushed back from the table with exaggerated ceremony. "Actually, I brought you a gift, Rebecca. Something I think you'll find enlightening." The silver-wrapped box slid across the table. Mom's face went ashen. "Naomi, don't..." "Open it," Naomi insisted, her eyes glittering with something that looked like triumph. Inside was the DNA test kit, and then came the words that split my life into before and after. The humiliation burned, but not as badly as the confirmation. This wasn't a cruel joke. This was an execution that had been planned. The way Mom flinched, the way Naomi leaned back, arms crossed, waiting for my reaction like she'd scripted this entire scene. I didn't cry, didn't run. I looked at both of them and said, "How long have you known?" Mom opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Naomi just smiled. "Do it," she said, gesturing at the kit. "Or are you afraid of the truth?" That night in my childhood bedroom, I didn't sleep. I tore through boxes in my closet looking for anything that might explain what I just learned. At the back of the top shelf, I found an envelope that had been moved recently. The dust around it was disturbed. Inside was a photograph, Mom, much younger, holding a baby. Me. But standing next to her was a man I didn't recognize, on the back in Mom's handwriting. "Forgive me." I photographed everything. Then I did exactly what Naomi wanted me to do. I mailed the DNA test, not because she'd manipulated me into it, but because I needed to know what truth she was weaponizing. The results came back 5 weeks later, while I was reviewing spreadsheets at my desk in Austin. The notification appeared on my phone. Results ready. No biological relationship detected with the Hartley family. I stared at those words for a full minute, waiting to feel something. Devastation, anger, betrayal. Instead, I felt clarity, sharp and cold and undeniable. This explained 35 years of being treated like a stranger in my own family. The results also showed something else, a genetic match to the Patterson lineage, a family name I'd never heard, people I'd never met who were apparently my actual relatives. I forwarded the results to our family group chat with a simple message. "Someone want to explain this?" Mom called within 2 minutes, sobbing. "Rebecca, sweetheart, please delete that. This is complicated. Things happened before you were born. We moved past them." "You moved past them," I said. I've spent my entire life wondering why my own mother looked at me like I was a mistake. "That's not fair. Did Dad know?" Silence. Then quietly. "He knew. He chose to raise you anyway. He loved you, Rebecca." The confirmation hurt worse than the discovery. Everyone had known except me. Naomi didn't call. She texted. "Well, now you know. You're welcome." I called her immediately. "Why? Why do this now?" She laughed, low and satisfied. "Because I've protected this family secret my entire adult life. Because Mom owed me. And because now the right people will finally get what they deserve." She hung up. Those words echoed in my head for hours. The right people. What did that mean? Over the next week, I started asking questions. Quietly, carefully. I called Dad's old college friend who mentioned Naomi had asked him about estate law. Our former next-door neighbor had overheard Naomi on the phone scheduling attorney consultations. Mom's sister, who'd stopped coming to family gatherings years ago, confirmed that Naomi had been planning something involving Dad's will for months. A pattern emerged. Naomi had been meeting with estate attorneys, multiple ones. She'd been telling people that Dad's assets would finally be distributed properly. She'd taken out a significant loan from Dad during his illness, $200,000 that she'd called a gift. I needed help. Real help. So I hired Madison Cross, an attorney who specialized in estate disputes. I showed her everything. The DNA results, the photograph, Naomi's texts, the pattern of meetings. Madison listened, taking notes, her expression neutral. Finally, she looked up. "Your instincts are right. Your sister is building a case to contest the will based on your parentage. She's trying to have you declared as not entitled to inherit. Can she do that?" "She can try. Whether she'll succeed depends on what your father's will actually says and whether he knew about your parentage when he wrote it." 3 days later, while I was working from my apartment in Austin, I got a call from Arthur Morrison, our longtime estate attorney. His voice was formal, careful. "Rebecca, your father left very specific instructions for the distribution of his will. Those instructions have been triggered by recent events. I think you should prepare yourself for what you're about to hear." The morning of the will reading, Madison and I made the drive from Austin to Denver together, arriving before 9 a.m. The city felt different now. Not home, just a place where painful things had happened. Morrison's office occupied the 20th floor of a downtown building, all dark wood and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the mountains. We arrived early, Madison whispered. "Let them talk. Watch their reactions. Don't defend yourself. The will do that." Mom came next, looking like she hadn't slept in weeks. Her hair was hastily pinned, her makeup couldn't hide the dark circles. She took a seat at the far end of the conference table without looking at me. Then Naomi arrived. She wore an expensive cream suit and too much jewelry, flanked by her own attorney, a man whose face I recognized from billboards about aggressive litigation. Her husband wasn't with her, and I later learned they'd separated after he discovered she'd been hiding the loan from him. She gave me a smile that was all teeth and no warmth. "Rebecca," she said, like greeting someone who'd already lost. Morrison entered carrying a thick folder. He sat at the head of the table and opened it deliberately. "Before we begin, I want to note that James Hartley anticipated complications with this reading. Everything I'm about to share was prepared with full knowledge of circumstances that might arise." Naomi's smile flickered. Morrison began reading. "I, James William Hartley, declare this my final will and testament. I leave 70% of my estate, including the family home, investment accounts, and business assets, to my daughter, Rebecca Hartley." The room went silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Naomi shot to her feet. "She's not his daughter. We have DNA proof. She has no legal—" Morrison held up his hand. "Please sit. There's more." Naomi sat, but her jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. Morrison continued, "I have known since Rebecca was 2 years old that she is not my biological child. I chose to raise her as my daughter because she deserved a father who saw her worth. I choose to leave her my legacy because she has proven herself worthy of it in every way that matters. This decision requires no further validation." Mom closed her eyes. Naomi's face had gone gray. "Additionally," Morrison said, pulling out another document, 8 months before his death, after noticing unusual account activity and overhearing discussions about changing his will, Mr. Hartley hired a private investigator to document any attempts to manipulate or interfere with his estate planning. He placed a stack of papers on the table. The investigation revealed that Naomi Hartley made unauthorized withdrawals totaling $50,000 from Mr. Hartley's accounts during his illness. She also met with multiple estate attorneys to discuss contesting the will, and she purchased the DNA test that was given to Rebecca at her birthday dinner. Naomi's attorney stiffened. "We weren't notified." "You weren't required to be," Morrison said calmly. Furthermore, Mr. Hartley documented a loan of $200,000 to Naomi Hartley with the expectation of repayment. Ms. Hartley has repeatedly claimed this was a gift. The documentation proves otherwise. "That's ridiculous," Naomi said, her voice shaking. "That was a joke. The DNA test was just—" Morrison unfolded a handwritten letter. "Mr. Hartley asked me to read this aloud." He cleared his throat. "Naomi, I know what you've been planning. I watched you try to manipulate your mother and pressure me to change my will. I hoped you would choose differently, but these consequences are yours. Rebecca deserves what I'm leaving her. You deserve to learn what it means to face the results of your choices." A sound escaped Naomi's throat, half gasp, half snarl. Her attorney leaned close. "Do not contest this. There's a no contest clause. You'll lose everything." But Naomi was unraveling. "This is fraud. She manipulated him. She tricked a dying man." Madison stood, her voice quiet but sharp. "The will explicitly acknowledges Rebecca's parentage. Any contest would trigger the no contest clause, requiring repayment of all outstanding loans. Approximately $200,000. Naomi's face twisted. "That wasn't a loan. He gave me that money." "Not according to the estate records," Morrison replied. "You have 12 months to repay it, or we proceed with collection action." "Naomi, stop," Mom whispered, but there was no force behind it. Naomi turned to me, wild-eyed. "You don't deserve this. I'm the real daughter. I stayed. I took care of them." I stood slowly. My voice came out steadier than I expected. You didn't take care of anyone, Naomi. You controlled. You manipulated. You spent your whole life making sure I knew I didn't belong, and Dad saw exactly what you were doing. Morrison handed me a smaller envelope. Your father left this for you. Inside was a short letter in Dad's handwriting. Rebecca, you spent your life believing you were invisible. You weren't. I saw your strength, your integrity, your quiet grace. You were my daughter by choice, and that made our bond stronger than biology ever could. I leave you my legacy with absolute certainty that you'll honor it. I'm proud of you. I always was. Love, Dad. My vision blurred. When I looked up, Naomi was staring at the table, finally understanding that this wasn't my victory. It was her defeat, crafted by the man she'd underestimated most. The legal aftermath moved quickly. Naomi's attorney withdrew the next day. When she tried to contest the will anyway, the judge dismissed it within minutes. The no contest clause activated. Her inheritance evaporated. The $200,000 loan converted to personal debt. The $50,000 in unauthorized withdrawals had to be repaid within a year. She managed to repay the $50,000 by selling her car and taking a second mortgage, but defaulted on the larger loan after 6 months, resulting in a judgment against her that will follow her for years. 2 weeks after the will reading, I was back in my Austin apartment when Mom arrived unannounced. She sat on my couch, hands folded, and told me everything. About my biological father, a colleague she'd had a brief affair with before I was born, the agreement they'd made that he would have no contact, the guilt she'd carried but never confronted. She admitted she'd never reached out to him after I was born, and he'd passed away years ago, which explained why the Patterson family match was distant relatives rather than immediate ones. I listened, but I didn't reach for her hand. I want to make things right, she whispered. I believe you, I said, but making things right means accepting that I can't have a relationship with you right now. Maybe someday, but not today. I need years, not months, to process what you allowed to happen to me. I'm not closing the door permanently, but I'm setting a boundary that protects me. She nodded, tears streaming. I understand. We agreed to no contact for at least 2 years, with the possibility of limited communication after that if we both felt ready. It was the most definitive boundary I'd ever set with her, and saying it out loud felt like finally claiming my own life. In the months that followed, I managed the estate with Madison's help, sold the Denver house, and relocated to Portland. Somewhere nobody knew the Hartley family drama. Somewhere I could build a life based on who I actually was, not who I'd been forced to be. I decided not to pursue contact with the Patterson family. My biological connection to them felt like another chapter I wasn't ready to open, and perhaps never would be. Naomi and I have had no contact since the will reading, and I have no intention of changing that. The remaining 30% of Dad's estate was divided between smaller bequests to charities he'd supported and a modest trust for Mom's living expenses. Some endings aren't loud or dramatic. They're choosing peace over pain, distance over damage, your own truth over someone else's lies. And if you've ever been the overlooked one in your own family, know this. Being chosen matters more than being born into something. The people who truly see you, those are your real family.